Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pot of Gold podcast, where parents turn ambition into action and corporate ceilings into launch pads for entrepreneurship. Today's guest, Landon Colvig, is living proof that technical skill and entrepreneurial vision can unlock serious leverage. Landon is the owner and CEO of Data Analytics, a company that helps medium to large businesses escape the grind of manual reporting by uncovering opportunities to automate, streamline, and scale. His team doesn't just clean up inefficiencies. They help businesses increase their valuation and prepare for high-value exits. He's also a member of Elite, Dan Martell's coaching program, sharpening his edge to serve clients at the highest level. Whether you're a parent stuck in your W-2, wondering how to transform your career experience into a thriving business, or a business owner ready to modernize your operations, this episode will challenge the way you think about systems, scale, and freedom. Landon, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to kind of hear about what your whole story is, how it is that you got into this type of field. There's all kinds of things that you can choose to do. So what led to the decision of being a data analytics kind of guy that helps businesses modernize their systems?
It really was my interest. I've always kind of been interested in business, and it was later on I was trying to learn web development, and I came across what they call data analytics on YouTube. And I kind of fell down the rabbit hole, and that led me to starting to do side projects. At the time, I was working another W-2 job, and the side projects got so big that I eventually left that career to do data analytics full time. And then now I do it in my own business.
Hey, that's really neat. Sometimes the opportunities just kind of present themselves to you, don't they?
Yeah.
So what kind of projects were you doing on the side apart from your W-2 job? What did that look like?
It was a lot of building very basic dashboards in a tool called Looker Studio. And it wasn't too difficult, but those types of projects are pretty tedious. So it gave me a good opportunity to get comfortable working with companies in that capacity without having to have a ton of technical knowledge.
Okay. And what were you doing for your W-2 job at the time?
I was actually an audio tech at a church here in Las Vegas. So it was completely different.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting mix of things, isn't it? But you don't always choose what your job is. It's just kind of, you got to pay the bills. People will hire you and you have some skills, then there you are.
Yeah, definitely. It was something I thought I wanted to do, and I still really enjoy it. I volunteer and do audio tech once in a while, audio engineering, but it's definitely not something I would want to do as my career.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. When I was a child, I wanted to be a paleontologist, and then my parents had me dig a big trench to install some plumbing outside a house that we had, and I realized I don't like digging holes, so kind of killed that dream.
Yeah, I've also done some digging, and it makes every other job easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, cool. I'm trying to kind of wrap my head around this idea that you had enough business to justify quitting your W-2 job. Was quitting your W-2 job something that you originally had intended, or was that just a side effect of having all these opportunities in your way?
It was something I wanted to do eventually. And what happened actually was I started doing these projects on the side of my full-time job. And I was lucky enough with that job that I had a flexible schedule. I was sitting around a lot, even though the pay wasn't very much. So I was able to use my extra time to do these side gigs on a website called Upwork. And through that website, I actually got introduced to what would be my next W-2 job. And some different things led me to quit the current job I had at the time, and coincidentally, a week after I put in my 2 weeks notice, one of the companies that I was doing some side projects for offered me a full-time job. And so I took that job, and I was there for about a year, and I learned so much by having that job. But after about a year, that company did some restructuring, and I got laid off along with a whole bunch of other people. And then it was at that point that I decided to go full-time into freelancing, because this was the beginning of 2024, and I was looking around at a lot of other people in the tech industry who had way more experience than me, way more degrees, and they were having trouble finding jobs for a year or 2 years even. And I thought to myself that I didn't want to wait a year or 2 years to start working, so I would devote a large portion of my energy at that time to start drumming up freelance work.
Okay, and you mentioned Upwork. That's the place where you can post your freelance skills so that people can hire you to do projects, correct?
Yeah, Upwork's been a game changer for me.
I imagine that's probably going to be something that the audience would like to know about. If you have a skill that you think you can monetize, even just doing little projects for people, you can go to Upwork, register as a freelancer, and you'll be able to find people that are looking for your skills and earn some money on the side doing that.
Definitely. And I always push even my friends to do it. It's kind of fun. If you just download the app, you can set up your profile very minimally. And you can actually just, when you're bored, you can scroll through and see what people are posting, because you would probably be surprised at the type of projects that companies are posting and the stuff they need help with that you already have the skills to do.
And the more you know, the more opportunities you have to utilize things like that. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that it doesn't always have to be a monetary thing. Sometimes having a project for a skill that you're trying to develop that comes from somebody else provides you with more hands-on knowledge and experience that you wouldn't get just working on something that you come up with yourself.
Yeah, definitely. I've seen a lot of freelancers, actually, they fall into this trap of thinking they need to keep learning, and before you know it, it's been 1 or 2 years of them learning, and they still aren't comfortable enough to go out and try and find work using those skills. So I actually push people to start applying for gigs and start looking for work as soon as possible, even if you're not sure that you have all the skills.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point as well, because I know that previously in some of the job interviews that I've had, I didn't know the answer to what they were asking me. And so I just gave them my best guess, and it turned out that it was good enough that I still got the job. And so I think we conjure up these ideas of we're not good enough, we're not experienced enough, and we're actually more experienced than the people that are looking for the work need. So you're going to be able to find opportunities, but you have to go out there and actually look for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree 100%.
All right. Well, typically, I'm also really curious about people's journey as they're leaving their W-2. Entrepreneurship isn't something that's just, hey, push buttons and instant money. What kind of problems did you run into along the way, and how did you overcome those?
The biggest problem for me has always been finding clients. And Upwork is really good, but there's a limit to how many leads you can get within a certain period of time just on the platform. So that's a problem I'm experiencing now, is trying to figure out how to get clients outside of the Upwork platform. But other problems I've had in the past are, even on Upwork, I was lucky enough to get too many clients to just handle the work myself. So actually, you mentioned Dan Martell earlier. He has a really good book that's called Buy Back Your Time. And in that book, there are a bunch of frameworks about delegation that have helped me a ton. And I've actually been able to, that's how I started my business, basically, was just following all of Dan Martell's frameworks when I finally had too much work to handle myself. And then actually going even further back than that, myself and a lot of other freelancers have a lot of trouble at first getting their first couple of clients on Upwork. And what I did was I found this guy on YouTube. His channel is called Freelance Family Man. But on his channel, he actually has a ton of good material and a ton of frameworks for optimizing your Upwork profile to get found in search, and then also optimizing the way you send proposals to help you get more jobs. And that helped me a ton, actually, to start getting more clients. And so those are just a few of the things that I've experienced so far. So
it kind of helps you with the lead generation, being able to find the customers that you can help the best and get them the results that they're looking for.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one of the things that Dan mentions, right? Like, if no one knows you, no one can pay you. And so I guess part of it's just getting the word out that, hey, I'm here, I have things that I can do, and this is what I charge for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You were going to say something else?
Upwork it's definitely, for a person like myself who's not a great salesperson, it's a great training ground for sales, because on the platform, you have people who are looking for the type of work you already do, and they're already willing to pay for it. And so at that point, all you have to do is convince them that you're the right person, which is a very small part of the actual sales process. And so for me, it's been a great way to it's like training wheels for sales.
That's really interesting because there are differences in the quality of the leads that you have come in. You have a cold lead and you have a warm lead, and then what they call like a hot lead. It's like a person that's like, hey, take my money.
Yeah.
But if you're starting with less friction, that allows you to practice your skills without having to face rejection as often. That's really useful. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you so much for that. Do you have any interesting stories of things that happened to you in your business?
Yeah. There's a couple. Probably a really embarrassing one recently was I had a client that I was building a data integration from LinkedIn for. And so LinkedIn is notorious for being difficult to get data out of. And so what I had to do was I had to use his login and build a web automation that goes in, collects the data that's needed, and then logs out of his account and then stores it wherever, right? But what happened was while I was building this on my own computer, I forgot that I had another tool that posts to my LinkedIn. But how that tool works is it's actually a browser extension, meaning that it uses my internet browser while I'm not on the computer to go into LinkedIn and post these posts. And it posts super early in the morning at like 4 o'clock. And so one day I wake up with a message from the client saying, hey, I think my LinkedIn account got hacked. And I look and it was the browser extension that I had forgotten about. It was posting my posts on his LinkedIn profile. When LinkedIn is a very big part of his business and he hadn't posted on LinkedIn for like 2 years. So that was extremely embarrassing. And that was a lot more recent than I care to admit.
Got it. All right. Well, how do you resolve something like that?
With that one, I just profusely apologized and said, let me know what I can do to make this right, because it was a big deal and it was very uncomfortable. But that sort of thing happens once in a while.
Yeah, you have to have those uncomfortable conversations for sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, sometimes, the thing that I've always been told is that machines do what you tell them, exactly what you tell them, and nothing else.
Yeah.
So it's always comes down to human error when things like that happen. But we live and we learn, right?
Yeah. I'll never do that one again. I'm sure there's other issues I will find like that.
Yeah, definitely. For my part, when I was first married to my wife, we only had one car and one phone, and she was at the college one night, and I got distracted, and it's pouring rain, it's cold outside, and I realized that I had missed picking her up from her class, and it was like an hour later. And so I was driving out there to go find her to pick her up, and there's that song by Avril Lavigne that came on the radio. It's a damn cold night. I'm all alone. I'm here in the rain. And why won't somebody come find me, come take me home? And so I just got like guilt tripped the entire time I was driving over to pick her up. And that was one of the mistakes that I made. And I haven't forgotten to go collect her from a place or an activity that she's doing since. Well, sometimes the mistakes you make are the hardest reinforcement of the lessons you need to learn.
Oh, no. Yeah, my wife and I shared a car up until maybe just a year or two ago. It's a great way to save a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, cool. What do you expect the future of your business to look like?
So at this point, we are trying to find which businesses to focus on, trying to simplify what we offer as a product. So in the past, we've offered a bit more of a variety than I'd like us to in the future. And so going forward, what we usually do with businesses that we help is first, we will start by building a 360 view business dashboard. And so what this dashboard will do is it'll usually have visibility around how much it's costing a business to get new customers through whatever source that is, whether it's Facebook ads, referrals, Google ads, local newspaper, whatever they do to get customers, how much it's costing per customer, per channel. And then also for each of their customers, how much their customers are paying them. So those are two important metrics. And then besides that, we also have whatever other operational metrics are important to their business. The dashboard it's meant to help them log in every day and see how their businesses are doing and what they need to do. And then after we build that dashboard, we can use a lot of the data integrations that we needed to build that dashboard to then go through the business, audit all of the manual processes. You know, maybe you have an employee spending 2 to 3 hours a day copy and pasting from one tool to another. And then that sort of thing, we can use the data integration to automate 100%. And so you just go through the business, you look at all those processes, automate them, starting with the highest priority and work all the way to the lowest. And then after that, and only after that, you can maybe look at bringing in some AI tools to kind of accelerate everything else. And then that's the type of process that we're focused on helping businesses with.
Okay, and so what you would be tracking or helping them set up with the dashboard are metrics for like KPIs, OKRs? Is that what I'm getting?
Yep, KPIs. Okay.
Which are key performance indicators for the audience. These are important things to track so that you know how your employees or your business is performing. And if you increase those numbers, typically it impacts the ability of the business to generate more money.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I'm kind of curious about is you mentioned that before bringing in AI, you do all these things. Why not automate as you're building? Why set up all the things from like a simple site or like a manual type of thing?
Yeah, the biggest reason is that AI works way better when it has a lot of data and clean data. And so by doing those other processes first, it really helps us and the business to set up a central data warehouse where all of their data is flowing in. And then once that's done, it makes integrating AI a lot easier, and the results from using that AI are much better because of all the data that the AI has access to.
Okay, that makes sense to me. Similar to not putting the cart before the horse. You put the horse there first, you strap it in, and then you can have it lead the cart instead of trying to figure it out the other direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And it always makes sense on the individual level to start using AI right away. Everybody can probably do their job better by using ChatGPT or Claude or another tool like that. But as a business, it's important to have your data clean and in one place before you start using AI as a business, I've found.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I'm curious about now is I hear a lot of influencers on Instagram and YouTube and the like talk about how a lot of these jobs are going to be taken away by AI. What's your take on that? Do you think that your kind of a business model is going to be threatened by AI, or what do we expect with that?
Yeah, to a certain extent it will. But I've found that usually once the roles disappear, a couple months later, new roles will pop up because the increased output creates new problems. And that's what we've seen in history as this has happened before with factories or different tools taking farmers' jobs. The jobs have never really gone away. They've just moved and popped up somewhere else.
Everyone has to develop new or slightly different skills.
Yeah. And so it does sting a little bit when something that used to take me 6 hours to do, I can type in 2 lines and then it's done. It definitely does sting.
I can relate to that because I'm a CNC machinist at my W-2 job, and I've been seeing some of these things they do with the robots at Tesla and a place they call Figure. And like I can run a CNC machine and I do measurements and I make sure quality control occurs. But as far as I can tell, those robots are going to be able to do all the things that I do. So I'm going to have to figure out how to change that. And maybe that's part of why I decided I wanted to become an entrepreneur, because it's all about staying ahead of the game.
Yeah, you definitely have to try not to focus too much on the negatives of it. Like there are some things that we do as a business that would not have been possible without all these new tools. For example, one thing we started doing recently was in just a couple minutes, you can make a wireframe of the dashboard that you want to build. And so if you give that to the customer, they know exactly what they're getting. And then you have something that's super defined and a lot easier for the team to build off of. And so that thing alone has saved me probably hundreds of hours of work just in the last year. And so that's the kind of thing that while you can be sad that you're not needed to do a certain task anymore, there's a ton of cool new uses for these new tools that can, especially as a business owner or a freelancer, you can really benefit from.
Well, that's really awesome. It's like the leverage you got out of using a calculator versus an abacus.
Yeah,
technology
definitely
marches forward and we find more elegant solutions for everything.
Yeah. And actually that's really important that I want a lot of people to know, is that a couple hundred years ago, when we were going through the Industrial Revolution here in the United States, there was people getting very wealthy, but it was the people who owned the factories, the people who had the new technology. And today, that's equivalent to people having an area where they can use this technology, because as an employee, income is kind of capped. No matter how much output you have, you're just going to get paid your salary or your hourly rate, or if you're in sales, maybe your commission. And so that's why I think it's really important for everybody to try to start freelancing, because as a freelancer, you can get paid for the work you get done and not just how long it took you to do that work. And so I definitely would recommend everybody watching this, if you don't already have something you're doing on the side, I would start it right away, because there's so much money to be made from using these new tools.
Certainly. The other thing that it comes to my mind when you say that is the fact that while there's the AI, and we're going to have to kind of change over a few things, this AI tool, unlike the factories that were available to only the factory owners, is available to everybody. So everybody can learn this skill, utilize it, and take advantage of it.
Exactly, yeah. That's the point I was trying to make, is that this opportunity did not exist back then, but it exists to us now.
It's more of a democratized opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's incredible. Well, on that topic, do you have any suggestions for AI tools, or maybe courses, resources, things that people could look into to take advantage of those tools that are available so that they can go out and do the freelance work and start getting around the glass ceiling that's involved with a W-2 job?
Absolutely, yeah. How I learn AI is, first I will usually ask AI, like Claude or ChatGPT. I like to pop back and forth between, there's ChatGPT, which I think everybody knows about, but there's also some competitors, like one is called Claude, Claude. That's a good competitor. And then there's one called Perplexity. There's a couple of different ones that you should periodically check, because they all kind of are going like this with the upgrades. And some of them are better at different things. And besides that, I don't take a lot of courses actually, but I will watch YouTube videos. There are a couple of influencers that I keep up with on YouTube that they spend so much time staying on top of the latest features, and then they share their opinion on them, whether that's good or bad. And so those two things are how I keep up with AI, which I probably could do a better job keeping up, but that's how I do it.
Okay. And who are the names of the influencers that you tend to keep up with?
I'm trying to remember. One is called Coda Go, and then Fire Ships is another one that I like, and I'm trying to remember besides that. I do a lot of scrolling on my YouTube homepage, and it's tough for me to remember, but if you search, if you search, you'll probably find some good stuff too.
I imagine you could also ask either Claude or ChatGPT, hey, could you give me some influential YouTube channels about the utilization and learning of AI, and it'll give you the answer to it.
You could. I'm still not quite happy with how it will return trending stuff or most recent stuff, but eventually it's gonna do exactly that.
Yeah, and I think Google came out with a video AI recently. I'm trying to think of what it's called.
Yeah, it's called like Veo or something. I haven't used it yet.
Yeah. Okay, well, cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience before we end the interview today, Landon?
Just to start freelancing. And if you don't feel like you can freelance, then go out and get skills that you can freelance with.
And I think that it's important for people to understand that there are all kinds of things that you can do, whether it's just consulting about how to put together a chicken coop, or whether you're taking care of a specific type of reptile. Like, there are anything under the sun you can think of that might be a specialized skill. People will pay you to learn more about it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. And thank you for everyone that listened in. This has been the Pot of Gold podcast. We talk about finances, business, wealth generation, real estate investing, all in the aims of helping people leave their W-2 job and become an entrepreneur full-time so that they can find the financial and time freedom that they're looking for. Thank you so much for tuning in.